4,500 Bitcoin, locked in a dead man's wallet. The CEO has fled to Israel, a fuel depot on the edge of Chelaj in the industrial south of Poland. The 10th of March, 2022. A 34-year-old man arrives for a meeting. He knows the place. He keeps a private helicopter on the site and an office. The surveillance cameras at the depot go dark shortly before he arrives. He walks in. He is never seen again. No body, no witnesses, no footage. Polish prosecutors would later open an investigation that does not rule out foul play. Years on, the case is still open, and there is still no good answer. Just an empty office, a helicopter no one came back for, and a set of cryptographic keys that exist nowhere else. His name was Sylwester Suzek. 8 years earlier, he had founded one of the largest crypto exchanges in Central Europe. By the time he vanished, the Polish crypto community knew him as the Bitcoin King. He kept the keys to the company's cold wallet himself, personally. 4,500 Bitcoin, today more than $330 million. For 4 years after his disappearance, the exchange kept trading. New name, new CEO, new country of registration. Then, in April 2026, the new CEO recorded a video to reassure his customers. The 4,500 Bitcoin, he said, were safe, in cold storage, untouched. He left out one detail. Nobody at the company could open the wallet. The only man who could was the man at the bottom of an unsolved disappearance. This is the story of Zondacrypto, a crypto exchange whose vault is sealed by a corpse. To understand how a company loses access to its own largest asset, you have to understand one thing about how a crypto exchange works. When you buy Bitcoin through an exchange and leave it there, you do not hold it. The exchange holds it in wallets it controls, secured by cryptographic keys it controls. Your balance is a number on the company's screen. Whether anything stands behind that number depends entirely on whether the company is honest, solvent, and competent. Zondacrypto would fail all three tests at once. Go back to 2014, to the Polish city of Katowice. Suzek was 26 years old when he launched BitBay. Bitcoin was still a fringe technology, and most Polish banks refused to touch it. Suzek built one of the first real on-ramps in the region, a place where ordinary people could turn zloty into Bitcoin and back. Within a few years, BitBay had become the dominant exchange for Polish, Czech, and Slovak traders. For a great many people in the region, it was not one option among several. It was simply how you bought Bitcoin. That trust, built over years, is the asset this story spins. And Suzek became visibly, conspicuously rich. The helicopter was part of it. He kept it at that fuel depot in Chelaj, a small industrial town near Katowice. The depot did not belong to him. It belonged to a former associate, a man Polish reporting identifies only as Marian W. According to prosecutors in the investigation opened years later, Marian W. was allegedly a figure inside an organized crime group built around the fuel trade, fuel smuggling, and large-scale VAT fraud. Prosecutors allege that network laundered more than 1.5 billion zloty. Marian W. has not been convicted in this case, and the allegations against him remain allegations. Remember that. The Bitcoin King kept his helicopter and his office and held his meetings on ground owned by an alleged figure of the fuel mafia. In 2018, the first official warning appeared. Poland's financial regulator, the KNF, placed BitBay on its public alert list for unauthorized payment services. It was a quiet technical sanction, the kind that makes a headline for a day. The exchange kept operating as if nothing had happened. The same year, according to a confidential memo from the ABW, Poland's internal intelligence agency, reported by the newspaper Gazeta Wyborcza, something far more serious allegedly happened. The memo concerns the Tambov group. Tambov is not a small operation. It is a Russian criminal syndicate that grew out of and long dominated the fuel and energy trade of 1990s St. Petersburg. Its home turf from the beginning was fuel. According to the ABW memo, in July 2018, the Tambov group acquired a controlling stake in BitBay, not a visible purchase. The memo assesses that the stake was routed through a Polish intermediary, a man with a history in the fuel mafia. Now put the pieces on the table together. A Russian syndicate, born in the fuel trade, an intermediary out of the fuel mafia, a founder who keeps his helicopter at a fuel depot owned by an alleged fuel mafia figure. This is not a crypto story that happens to brush against organized crime at the edges. According to Polish intelligence, by 2018, the largest crypto exchange in Central Europe and the fuel underworld that ran between Poland and Russia were the same world. One caution, and it matters. The Tambov stake is an intelligence assessment. It is a memo, not a verdict, not a charge proven in any court. But if the assessment is accurate, then from 2018 onward, the man the public called the Bitcoin King was the visible owner of a company someone else controlled. By 2021, the picture changed again. Syndicate transferred ownership of the exchange to a foreign holding. BitBay was rebranded as Zonda. Operations were moved, first to Malta, then to Estonia, to an entity called BB Trade Estonia. Syndic's family would later describe this transfer not as a sale, but as a hostile takeover, an operation that pushed him out of the company he had built and stripped him of his assets. That account comes from the family, reported by the outlets Cryptopolitan and MEXC News. One thing did not move with the company: the keys to the cold wallet. Syndicate kept them. If the family's account is accurate, that is a strange detail to sit with. The man was being forced out of the company he had built, and the single most valuable thing that company owned stayed in his hands. Whether he kept the keys deliberately or was simply never asked to hand them over, no one has been able to say. 8 months later, the cameras at the Chelaj fuel depot went dark, and the man who held the keys walked into a meeting and never walked out. What happened next is what makes this story unlike any other crypto collapse. The exchange did not stop. It rebranded once more, this time to Zondacrypto. In 2023, a new CEO took over. Przemysław Kral, a lawyer by training, a dual Polish-Israeli citizen. He inherited a company whose founder had vanished, whose ownership was the subject of an intelligence memo, and whose single largest asset, 4,500 Bitcoin, sat in a wallet the company could not open. Under Kral, Zondacrypto went on a marketing offensive. In October 2025, the exchange became the general sponsor of the Polish Olympic Committee. It signed sponsorship deals with European football clubs, Juventus, Bologna, Parma. It promised Polish Olympic athletes prize money, paid in its own platform token. Around 1.1 million zloty in token prizes were committed. To the outside world, Zondacrypto looked like a maturing European exchange, the kind that sponsors national teams. Inside, according to the on-chain analysis that was about to become public, the reserves were already gone. Here is the part the company could not hide, even if it tried. A blockchain is a public ledger. Every movement of funds in and out of an exchange's wallets is recorded on it permanently and visible to anyone who knows how to read it. And the ledger showed a collapse. In August 2024, the exchange's hot wallet reserves stood at roughly 55.7 Bitcoin. By March 2026, those reserves had fallen to roughly 0.18 Bitcoin, a drop of 99.7%. The money had been draining out in plain sight on a public ledger for a year and a half. It did not take a leak or a whistleblower or hack. The information was public the entire time. It took a journalist commissioning a forensic firm to make anyone actually read it. On the 6th of April, 2026, the Polish outlet Money.pl published an investigation built on a forensic on-chain analysis by the firm Recoveris. The numbers were laid out in detail. The reserves were essentially gone. Within days, customers began reporting that withdrawals were delayed, then blocked. Kral responded publicly. He called the analysis the result of, in his words, a fundamental analytical error. That denial is on the record, reported by CoinDesk. Then on the 16th of April, he posted a video on X. In it, he confirmed that the exchange held 4,500 Bitcoin in reserve, and he admitted, for the first time on record, that the company could not access it. The cold wallet keys, he said, had been held by Syndicate and had never been transferred during the 2021 change of ownership. 4 years after the founder vanished, the company was admitting that its single largest asset was sealed inside a wallet only a missing man could open. The next day, the floor caved in. On the 17th of April, 2026, the district prosecutor's office in Katowice opened a criminal investigation into zondacrypto on suspicion of fraud and money laundering. The same day, Prime Minister Donald Tusk held a press conference. He linked the exchange to alleged Russian capital and to political financing. He announced new legislation. He said, quote, "The only change I will propose is even stricter penalties for those who exploit people's dreams, sometimes their naivety or lack of knowledge, to defraud them and also endanger the Polish state and our security." End quote. While Tusk was speaking, Przemysław Kral was boarding a flight to Israel. He has been unreachable since. His company email is disabled. Israel does not extradite its own citizens. 2 days later, on the 19th of April, the entire supervisory board of BB Trade Estonia resigned in a single block. Boards do not resign like that over a routine quarter. They resign like that when proximity to a company has turned into a liability. Then the number stopped being abstract. By the 5th of May, prosecutors estimated the losses at least 350 million zloty, roughly $97 million, and rising. Around 30,000 Polish users had their funds frozen on the platform. Hundreds were formally registered as victims in the prosecutor's files. Behind that figure are individual people. Krystian Wesołowski, a 25-year-old from the town of Wieliczka, had saved around 40,000 zloty on the platform, money he was putting toward a house. Speaking to the investigative outlet Balkan Insight, he described what the company had told its customers about its reserves as, in his words, smoke and mirrors. His house fund is now a line in a criminal file. He is one of 30,000. Among the others were the athletes. Zondacrypto had made itself the sponsor of the Polish Olympic Committee, and it had promised Olympic competitors prize money paid in its own token. One of them, a Polish Olympic speed skater, had been promised such a bonus. When the platform froze, that prize, boss, like the token it was denominated in, was worth nothing. The exchange had put its name on the national team and handed that team a currency that evaporated. This is the shape of the human cost. Ordinary savers building toward a house, a child's education, a retirement. National athletes paid in a token nobody can redeem. 30,000 people who trusted a company in part because it sponsored the institutions they already trusted. Then a second jurisdiction moved. In May 2026, prosecutors in Munich opened a parallel investigation, also for money laundering. This is the point where the story usually ends. The exchange collapses, the customers lose their money, the founder is missing, the CEO is gone, the prosecutors are circling. A familiar shape. It is not the shape of this story. Because the question Polish investigators are now asking is not where the money went. The on-chain analysis can trace where the money went. The question is, who actually owned this exchange between 2018 and 2022? If the ABW assessment is accurate, the answer is not Sylwester Susek. The man the public call the Bitcoin King may have spent the last 4 years of his life as the visible face of an asset he no longer controlled. And that changes what his disappearance was. A founder who vanishes at a fuel depot owned by an alleged organized crime figure is not, on this reading, a missing persons case. It is the closing of a ledger. The 4,500 Bitcoin in the cold wallet are not simply missing funds. They are the one asset that whoever truly controlled the exchange could not take. Every other thing of value could be moved, renamed, routed offshore, drained through a hot wallet on a public chain. Not the cold wallet. Its key belonged to one specific man, and at some point, he became the one man they could no longer negotiate with. The aftermath has unfolded on 3 tracks. The criminal track is active and expanding. Katowice, prosecutors are investigating fraud and money laundering. Munich opened a parallel laundering case in May. Kral, the CEO, remains under investigation. He has not been convicted of anything. He has publicly denied the accusations and has called the alleged Russian links, in his word, absurd in comments reported by CoinDesk and Disruption Banking. He has not returned to Poland. The intelligence track centers on the ABW memo and the alleged Tambov stake. That assessment remains an intelligence finding, not a verdict. But it has reshaped how the Polish government talks about the case. Tusk has tied the collapse explicitly to national security. The third track is the money's footprint outside the exchange itself. In May 2025, Zondacrypto co-sponsored the Polish edition of CP, the American Political Conference. Separately, Kral made a payment of approximately 500,000 zloty, around 100,000 euros, to the Sovereign Poland Institute, a foundation linked to a former Polish Minister of Justice. The payment was confirmed by the foundation that received it. These are facts about where the company's money went. They are not here a political argument. What they meant, if anything, is for the investigation to determine. And the 4,500 Bitcoin remain where they have been all along, still in the wallet, still visible on the public blockchain. Anyone can look up the address and read the balance. Untouched. Untouched because untouchable. There is something worth saying plainly about this case because it is rare even in a catalog of frauds. Most exchange collapses are forensic. You can trace the money. You can name the people who controlled it. You can eventually serve the warrants. The story ends in a courtroom. However slowly it gets there, this one is built differently. The man who could answer the central question, the man who held the keys, and who knew what happened in 2018, walked into a meeting at a fuel depot and disappeared. The cameras went dark before he arrived. There is no body. There is no footage. There is no successor holding his cryptographic credentials. A wallet without its key is just a number on a blockchain. A founder without a body is just a missing person. Put the two together, and you have something the legal system was never designed to resolve. 30,000 people lost their savings to a company whose largest asset cannot be moved and whose original owner cannot be questioned. The investigation is open. The CEO is in Israel. The Bitcoin is on the chain. And the one man who could connect the three is presumed dead 4 years ago at a fuel depot whose cameras stopped working at exactly the wrong moment. This is the kind of case that does not close, it corrodes. So here's the question for the comments. If a crypto exchange holds your money and the only person who could prove the reserves were ever real is dead, were those reserves ever real at all? Yes or no? Defend your answer. And if this is the first time you have heard this story, consider where else it has happened. Because there is another exchange on another continent where the founder also took the keys with him. He did not vanish at a fuel depot. He died on his honeymoon. Roughly $250 million in customer funds went into the ground with him, and the case has never been fully resolved. It is one of the strangest stories in the history of digital money, and it is sitting in this channel's catalog, waiting.